Hi and welcome everybody. This is Craig from the University of Applied Research and Development, and I'm really delighted to have with us Lemeria, who's an emergency preparedness coordinator for Action Against Hunger, who's worked around the world. Good morning or good evening, Lemeria.
Good evening to you as well, or good morning to wherever you are calling from. Yes.
Great to see you. Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you for having me.
Now tell us about your role that you have right now and how you came to have the role that you have right now.
So I have been, currently I am the Emergency Preparedness and Response Coordinator, and I work with Action Against Hunger based in France. But I think all through my career, I have been a humanitarian and development professional. Started way back in South Sudan during the conflict, and worked basically in various, conflicts and natural disasters context. As we know, currently, in 2020, 2021, we've been experiencing multiple disasters, one also related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I guess through my career, I've always had this passion to experience, I would say, or to contribute towards the emergency preparedness and response, working directly with communities and at some point supporting teams. So currently, my role involves supporting country teams in various countries across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, but basically to be able to prepare for and mitigate emergencies. And it could be either through conflict, it could be natural disasters, either slow onset like drought, or it could be as well earthquake. You're looking at flooding, you're looking at epidemics or pandemics such as COVID-19. And so what I do is I support the country teams to put strategies in place to mitigate those disasters, as we call them, from happening, or to lessen the impact of the disasters on communities that we are here to serve. Yes.
And because your organization is called Action Against Hunger, I would imagine your focus is on food security, supplying food and all of those different situations that you talked about.
Absolutely right. So it's more food security related. It could be as well water, sanitation, and hygiene, because it's quite linked together. And it could be issues to do with mental health and psychosocial support as well, because as we know, sometimes during a disaster, it's all related in terms of how communities are able to be resilient to experience what it is that they are going through. So sometimes it also could be like they need a bit of support in distressing mitigation on how they can cope with the event that is in front of them, right? Yeah, so of course, as well to do with food security, livelihood approaches, and things like that. Yes.
So you're coordinating across different countries, and as you've said, different types of situations. Like you said, drought, slow onset, earthquake is something that's very sudden. How do you manage the differences in the way that you have to support the teams, given their very different context?
Sorry, just excuse me, because I have my kids in the background and they're quite and they're moving, and unfortunately I cannot get them out of the room. Sorry about that. Sorry,
You're giving them the look.
I can give them like the eye, like mommy's in a meeting right now, right. Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay. No problem. This is live, so that's fine. So, Lemeria, you have very different situations in different countries. So an earthquake is different from developing drought over time, and then the ongoing pandemic. How do you manage, how do you balance supporting different teams with different strategies?
I guess it comes with, for me personally, it's the dedication and the passion that I have for the work, and at some point also looking at the interest that emanates from a particular country, and the need for them to feel that I am able to contribute in a substantial way. That's one. And secondly, it's also, I mean, because my work doesn't just involve me working by myself. I also get other support from either the government and working together with the government. And so the support system within that really helps to either cascade that information towards our teams, towards our communities that we are supporting as well. So I guess that is how I am able to manage. But of course, at some point, my role involves a lot of travel. And in some cases, it's trying to balance requests that will be coming from one particular country to another, because sometimes when we are on deployment, you would also be needed in a specific country that would need your support. Yeah.
Tell us about one of the projects that you're leading right now or coordinating.
I would say right now, basically, my role involves having or ensuring or supporting, I would say, the country teams to have emergency preparedness and response plans. So I have just come from Zimbabwe actually, and was supporting the team to go through this process. And one of the things is that we look at the preparedness plan and we discuss the sort of like hazards or crises that the country is going through. So of course, Zimbabwe, as we know, there's some northern part of the country is going through a drought crisis, and the last 2 years or so, they've gone through the cyclone season that has resulted to flooding as well as some cholera or disease outbreaks. So my role involves supporting one of the projects that I'm supporting or coordinating is ensuring that their preparedness plan aligns with what hazards that the country is going through, and then to put the measures, so sort of like what we call the minimum preparedness measures in place, so that they can be able to articulate and they can be able to respond better in the future should this emergency strike. So basically looking at anticipatory action. So they anticipate that, for example, there will be a flooding coming, and then what do they need to put in place to ensure that the risk to this flooding to the communities is sort of like lessened. So this is it's an ongoing project. It will go for 1 year until 2022, the end of 2022. Then we can revert back to see whether they have been able to put the strategies in place. Right.
So let's focus on that, the preparation for flooding, the minimum preparedness measures. What are some of those?
So this could be organizationally, we call, could be basic or small things that ensure project planning. For example, one of the key issues that as organizations we always battle with is funding. And at the beginning of a crisis, normally you have there's this donor hesitancy that goes towards funding for something that has not happened yet. So you see more and more interest. I mean, more donors are interested in funding after, so it's more reactive. They want to see that, okay, this has affected X number of people and we can be able to support. But on the other hand, with the minimum preparedness measures, what we look at is you identify, okay, if funding is an issue, something that you would want to be covered, you already can reach out to the donors in advance of a crisis, and you let them know that, okay, through our planning or through our risk analysis and risk mapping, we've identified there's going to be flooding coming in December, based on, of course, the information from the meteorological department. You have specific modeling indicators that can already tell you that, okay, we are sure that there will be flooding this season. And with that, we reach out in advance to the donors to let them know, okay, if you provide us with funding now, we are able to save let's say, X amount of dollars in response. So it's actually cheaper for you to invest now in preparedness than for you to provide assistance when the event has already happened. So that is one. Organizationally as well, what we do is we look for like the contract or service providers, I would say. And these service providers could be in items that we need. Let's say it could be stocks or contingency stocks that could go either to support the communities or the participants, we would say, to be able to, for the team to procure in advance or to pre-position these contingency stocks in the event of a crisis. So these are some of those preparedness measures that we use. In other situations, we also do use, let's say, cash and voucher assistance, so that it's easier, it's faster. So either the team already goes out to look for financial service providers, they understand how much should there be a crisis, how much assistance will be provided in terms of cash, and like in how many months would this assistance be needed, so that you have those measures in place already before the event has happened. Yeah. So those are some of the preparedness measures that we put in place, even looking at things to do with security. If it's a heightened or a context that has a heightened security risk as well. So you do use risk mapping or security mapping just to ensure that things already are in place before the event happens. Yeah.
Okay.
Just excuse me again. Maha Idris, please, Mommy is in a meeting. Can you respect that Mommy is in a meeting and you just keep your voice down? Thank you. Thank you.
Nice. So you've mentioned funding, connecting with service providers in advance, seeing if cash assistance is the way to go, the duration of that and the amount as well.
Exactly.
And then security mapping as well, to make sure the security, I guess, of your team and the security of the project is going to be secured during those times.
Exactly.
So what happens when it just all goes bad, and all of the planning and all of the preparation, and you might get, yes, the flooding does happen, but then there's a war or a conflict breaks out, and then you have a pandemic. How do you manage those things that are not prepared for? Do you have wider organizations you work with to fill in the gaps? What do you do?
So yes, and normally we don't work on a vacuum. We work with others. So
Right.
you either work with the government, and we work as well with national organizations, much more at the grassroots level. Yeah, and this is the part where there is this empowering process. So you look at government institutions, and in most cases we liaise with the disaster risk management agency or authority if it is in a country, and then we also liaise with, let's say, the national organizations that are also present, and with this we are able to be able to. You want to say hello? Yes. So with this we are able to be able to provide that assistance that and everybody at the same time can be able to play a particular role in this in a crisis, in the event that everything goes wrong. But normally we say with proper planning, and you put these mitigation measures in place, and you do a risk analysis, then you can be able to identify who does what, when, and where, in the event we say if things don't go according to plan.
Lemeria, just as we wrap up, if someone wanted to do what you're doing and be involved in the type of work you're doing, what are some trainings or some experiences that you would encourage aspiring emergency preparedness coordinators to do? How can they prepare?
Right. I would say the passion. You have to have the passion and the belief that it's possible to mitigate, to prepare, and you have to even look inwardly within your own lifestyle to see that, okay, if I prepare for something, probably it's going to go well. But then it's very important to as well have the field, what I call the field experience, or having started from a point of working in an actual context where there are needs. And out of that, then you can be able to relate much more with the situations that is on the ground. So passion, experience, but also I would say is to be able to have some level of training, education in basically humanitarian, emergency and development sector. And you can combine that, of course, with the field experience that would come quite in handy. Because sometimes I think what we fail to do is we theorize. And I remember even for me at some point, I was theorizing quite a lot, but then having that real field experience where you are there with the community, you're able to understand what the needs are, then you can be able to contribute in a much more substantial way and in a more I would say authentic way to be able to support and to build the preparedness measures that we are talking about. Yes. Right.
Well, Lemeria, thank you very much for giving us your time. Thank you for sharing some of your experiences and how you do what you do. Really appreciate you doing this for us.
No, thank you very much for having me, and I apologize again for the background noise and for my kids being around, being around sometimes. However much you train them, you tell them I'm in a meeting. Yeah, sometimes it all goes wrong. But
No
thank you very
problem.
much for having me. Yes.
It's been really great. Please don't go anywhere. Just as we wrap up, I'd love to have a quick talk with you after we close the broadcast. So please stay with us. And for those of you that are watching the recording, or you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, on YouTube, or maybe you're watching the rebroadcast on Twitch or on Twitter, thanks so much for being with us. And if you're an emergency manager, if you're from military or from another industry where you carry the responsibility of emergency management, often you're doing training, you're constantly doing courses, you're getting upgraded, you're learning new techniques or legislation. You probably have that big binder full of certifications and courses that you've done, but sometimes it doesn't translate into an academic degree or into a master's degree that you want or you need to improve your career. That's why we were established. So do reach out to us, uard.org or uard.ac.nz. Would love to help you and give you recognition of all of your prior learning so you can move your career forward and gain the qualification that you need for your career. So we look forward to seeing you again on our next video cast. And thank you again, Lemeria.